Hello and welcome to today's BITRIX24 webinar, Next Perfect Project Management. Thank you very much for joining today. Okay, so first of all, we'll just go through some introductions. So I'm Sam Connor, Sales Manager here at Interface, and we are BITRIX24 Gold Partners based in the UK, the US, and Hong Kong. And we offer a full range of services to assist you with BITRIX24. So starting off with pre-sale support, so we can help to analyze your requirements and see if BITRIX24 could be a good fit for what you're trying to achieve. If you are interested in the self-hosted version of BITRIX24, we can provide you with our hosting service. And we also provide ongoing dedicated support and customized training to help teams and organizations get the most possible value out of the BITRIX24 system. Okay, so if you're joining today's Perfect Project Management webinar to maybe get some more information about what BITRIX24 is at a higher level, let's just discuss a bit about the BITRIX24 system. Okay, so BITRIX24 is a collaboration suite of well in excess now of 35 different tools and modules that you can use to help you to manage your business. And there are over 15 million businesses now around the world that use the BITRIX24 system. And it's available in two different versions. So we have the BITRIX24 Cloud and we have the BITRIX24 self-hosted solution. Now, when we say self-hosted, we simply mean it's a private cloud version of BITRIX24 that you could host on your own private cloud system or on a local server as well. Okay, and prices start from approximately $49 per month for a basic cloud license. Or if you are interested in the self-hosted version, that starts at the Business 50 tier, which is priced at 3,590 US dollars in year one. And then in year two and ongoing annually, you'll pay a 50% renewal fee to continue to access your license. Okay, so today's webinar is all about project management. So if you do have any questions at all today, you can put them into our question box here on YouTube. We are live, so really the questions should be around the project side of BITRIX, but if you have questions about other areas of the system, then we'll be happy to answer those for you as well. Okay, so before we take a look at the project management tools within BITRIX, let's just discuss about some of the key benefits, some of the key reasons why you should use BITRIX24 for your project needs. So first of all, you can have an unlimited number of project work groups, which are really useful and handy area where you can manage all of the different elements of a project. So from the tasks, documents, all the communications, meetings and events, you can centralize all of that information inside a work group. We have there, as I briefly mentioned, task management. So a really nice, powerful task management tool that you're able to manage all of the tasks across different projects, but also manage all of the tasks across the CRM system and other areas of the BITRIX platform. We also have automations. We have some really powerful automations that you can value from using to automate the creation of projects. We can automate task management tools as well. So when we progress through stages, we can automate different actions. So as we go through the webinar today, we'll take a look at some of those automations in more detail. We also have Gantt charts and BI reporting. So we'll take a look at the dashboard reporting tool. So that adds a lot of powerful reporting capabilities directly inside the BITRIX system. And using the collab tool, we can use the external users feature. So that's where we can invite it could be our clients or suppliers, into a collaboration area where we can then share information and communicate with them directly through our BITRIX24 system. Okay, so the first area we'll look at today then is the project groups area. So this is where we can create our projects within the Bitrix system. So we'll see how we can add employees, we'll look at how we can manage tasks and then collaborate and share information using some of the different tools and features within the Bitrix24 project tools. Okay, so let's head over to our Bitrix system. Now, what we're looking at here, this is an on-premise version of Bitrix. We've also got open a cloud version as well. So as we go through today's session, if there's certain functionality where you're going to need a certain tier of Bitrix24, I will point that out to you. And if you have any questions, you can simply put those into the chat and we can discuss. Okay. So first of all, the first thing to point out within the system here is you'll be able to see the tasks and projects features and module on the left hand side here in tasks and projects. Okay, now if you can't see that, most likely that's down to a permission configuration. So if you go into settings and you go into your tools, you just need to make sure that you have the tasks and projects feature turned on, and then also configure within the module there some of the other functionality further down. Make sure you have that turned on and you'll be able to access the module. Okay, so let's take a look first of all at how we can create a new project within this module. So if we go into the projects here, first of all, we can see all of the existing projects that I have access to. Okay, so based on permissions, we can set visibility levels as to who can see different projects within the system. And so if we click on create, you can see here 3 different types of projects. So first of all, we have our project type. We also have work groups. Okay, very similar. The key difference between these 2 types is on a project, we can set time parameters. So we can have a start and an end date for the project. So if we have those time parameters, it means any tasks within that project, they cannot surpass the end date of the project. Whereas with a work group, you don't need to have those time parameters. You don't have a deadline on a work group. So for a good example of this is you could have a work group for every department within your organization. So where you can share information, share tasks across everyone within that department structure. You're not going to have an end date on a department really. So that's where a work group would be a very suitable solution. And then the third type is the collab feature. So we're going to have a look at this in more detail later on in today's webinar. But the collab feature is what you would use to be able to create an area with external users. So that's your customers, suppliers, where we can then share information and create a collaboration area. Okay. Now, if you did use the collab feature, as I say, we'll look at it in more detail shortly, but there is no limit on the number of external clients, suppliers, vendors, etc., that you could add to collabs. So it's an unlimited structure of collabs. But let's go in here and create a project. So we'll see what that will look like in the system. Okay, so let's have a look here. First of all, you can see the first page. We have to fill in information about our project. So let's call this webinar setup 2026. And then I can add a description. Okay, so we can add a description so everyone's aware of what this will be about in terms of the logical information within the project. We can choose an icon. and we can choose a background theme. So this is essentially the background for what is going to display on the project. And then we can start to add what content we want to add into this project. So first of all, we've got the project dates. So these are the time parameters that I was referencing earlier on. So I can add those dates into here. We can add a subject, which can be used for reporting purposes. Okay. And then we can also add tags, which we can use for filtering. That can be customized. And we see here then the features that we can enable on our project. So this is completely customizable to how you want to have functionality stored within your projects. Okay, so in this particular project, I'm turning on the task feature because I want to be able to share tasks with my colleagues on here. But I also want to share documents and I want an area for instant communication. So I'm turning on the drive and the chat feature as well. Now, once you've created this, don't worry, because you can always come back to this to configure the features and add more functionality here. Okay, but if we save that now, we can then choose our privacy level. So essentially, who within our BITRIX is able to access this specific project. So if it's public, anyone in the BITRIX system can see the project and enter it. Private means you're only able to request an invite. So you then, once the invite's been authorized, you have access to the project information. Or hidden. So if it's hidden, it's not even possible to see it in the list to request access. You'll only be able to access this if you are invited by the project manager. And when we say project manager, that brings us on now to the team members and the different levels of ownership. Okay, so first of all, we have the project owner. So that is essentially the ownership of the project. We can then have project moderators. So this is really like a middle layer of management within the project. And then we can add additional employees to the project. So those are the three different levels we have for our project. And next we can create. So that's now going to bring all of the information together. So you can see in the top here, it's got the title of the project. I can see the members here that have been invited. So we're waiting for them to accept. And within here, then I can see the different features that we enabled at the start. So tasks we turned on, so we can see the task management area. And we also have the drive where we're now able to store document for the project. And if I bring up here the chat feature as well. So those are the three tools we enabled on this specific project. So I can then communicate through an instant chat system with the rest of the team. Like so. Okay, so that's how we can create one project. But let's take a look at a project that is currently live. So let's take a look at what we have. So you can free text search through the project list view here. So if you have a lot of projects that are being run at any given time, we can use that tool to easily filter through that information. Okay. So here we can see the security project that is currently a live project within the system. So we'll take a look at all the different features within this project. But as I say, if you have any questions as we go through this section, just add them into the chat area on YouTube and we can go through and answer all of those questions for you. Okay. Okay, so before we take a look at an in-depth look at the project, I just want to take you into an area here called roles and permissions. Because it's really important that we can configure the different layers of permission on every single project that we run inside BITRIX. So in this specific project, for example, who I'm allowing to invite into this project, I might say anyone who has access to this project can invite a new member. But actually that could be very dangerous. So I'm going to, it's only the owner of the project, that single point of contact that is able to invite new people. And you can see throughout the permission configuration here, there are a huge variety of settings on every feature of the system that you can configure. So here, for example, who's able to create tasks? I'm going to allow all project participants to create tasks within the project. So you're able to configure these permissions in a way that really it works for you on the project. And so you can configure this and it doesn't impact on any other project that you are running. Okay, and that then takes us to look at the task management area of BITRIX24. So in this specific project, you can see here we have a lot of different tasks that are currently being run through this project. So what we're going to look at here are the different ways you can view that information within the system. And there are a lot of different ways, which is really valuable because it allows you really to utilize the Bitrix project area in a way that works for you as an individual. So everyone in that project may actually view their tasks in different ways, but it's beneficial and valuable for that person. So you maximize the return of input that every user has on the project. So first of all, we have the list view. So essentially it's a table of information of all of the data within the task area here. So you can configure the layout. I can see all of the tasks here and you can configure the settings. So I can configure what information we want to display about the tasks in this page. We then have the Kanban view, really popular view this. So you can configure here the different stages that we progress the tasks through. And those stages are configurable for every project that you run. Okay, so you may have a very different Kanban stage progression or a different type of project. You could customize that within your Bitrix project tool. So we can see all the tasks here. If I click in the deadline view, here we have, again, a really useful feature because every task we create with a deadline, Bitrix will automatically put it into the relevant placeholder here based on that deadline. So I can see here what's overdue, what's due today, what's due this week, etc. So it really becomes a valuable way for you to be able to manage your tasks. And within any of these views, I can click into that task and see all of the information about that task in the system. So here, this furniture design task review, I can see all of the information. I can see and tick off the checklists as they get completed. You've also got a time tracker, so you can record time on those tasks so that can log inside the system. And we have a communication area. So we can communicate with the rest of our team through here. So if I click in here, okay, so you can really have a centralized area where all of the communication is going to be managed for a task. Okay. Okay, you have a planner area. So essentially a planner, it's an individual view of stages for the user on their Bitrix. So if I create some new stages here, that doesn't impact any other user on their planner view. So it's personalized to the individual user so they can manage their tasks and progress them in a way that works for them. And then we also have a calendar view. So based on the deadlines of those tasks, we can see this in a calendar format. And again, a very popular view is the Gantt chart. So this gives you a high level overview across the tasks on that project on a Gantt chart format. So you can see there, using the viewing tools, there is a huge variety of ways you could manage your workload on the project. So every user can really determine what's most suitable for them. And within every view we've seen here, you can filter through this information. So you can filter down on any data points, any filters that you have, or you can free text search as well through here. So it's really simple to be able to drill down through all of that task information. And any comments that you've not read, you'll see this is a counter. So you can filter through all of the latest comments that you've not yet seen. Okay, so that is a look at tasks. Now, if you want to create a new task, You can click on the create task page, and this is going to open up the task page here. So we can give the title for the task. Okay, then you can add a description, so you can add a lot more content for the task there. We can add checklists, so where we're starting to add different items that need to be completed. And by the way, within here, you can store documents, so it's really easy to store all of the key information about the task. We then have an assignee, so that is the essentially who's going to be the owner responsible for completing this task. You can also add participants and observers, so different layers of hierarchy on the task. As an observer, really it's just for you to be able to view the information rather than manage the task. And then we've got our time parameters. So we can add a deadline for the task here. We can also add when it starts and when to be completed. Now, if you are in a business where maybe you have certain tasks that are automatically really reoccurring, say if you're an accountancy firm, every month you're going to have the same tasks to do on that client, such as their monthly payroll. So what we can do on here is we can turn on the repeat task mode. And this is going to automatically have that task repeated at a certain time parameter that you select, okay, in a certain time frame. So rather than having to recreate manually this task over and over again, you can use that repeat task tool to have it automated for you in the system. And what you can do is maybe if it's not something that needs to be automated, but something that maybe you want to use this task as a framework several times, you could use and save it as a task template here. So if you did this, I can then select a template for like so, and it's going to pull in the information for that task page like so. Okay, so that is a look at tasks. Let's take a look at some of the other features that we have within this project. So first of all, we have the feed area. So the feed, essentially you want to see a feed as an intranet news feed board for this specific project. So any updates on comments, any information associated to tasks that changes, you can post out information. Okay, we could send that out to everyone in this project. So you can easily communicate with your project team through the feed section. And you can see all different types of events from announcements, activity updates, and you can search and tag through the system here. Now, you could also, for example, send out announcements. So if there's a critical message about the project, that could then be pinning that comment to message to the top of the feed for a certain amount of time. So there's lots of different types of message type that you could send through the feed. So as we saw earlier on, we have an instant chat tool. So you can communicate with your project team through here via instant chat. You can also do video calling and you can do voice calls all through the BITRIX system here. There's also a drive area. So this is a really popular feature on projects. So inside here, we can store documents. You can then set permissions as well. So even though the documents are added to the project, you might want to restrict who within that project is able to access this document and configure their level of access. If you want to add documents, you can connect, first of all, from your local machine. You can add folders and files, but you can also connect to external document repository systems as well. Okay, the next feature, we have the calendar. So inside here, we can add meetings for the project team. So we can add that into here, create that, and it's going to create that inside the system. And we have lists. So lists are essentially tables of information. Okay, so in here, we can store information here about expenses, for example. And if you watch our business processes webinar, you'll see you can run automated processes. So let's say here on this flight that we have, we could then run a workflow, an approval workflow to have that expense approved or rejected inside the system. Okay, so that is a look at how we can manage a project within Bitrix. Okay, now we're looking there at one project. So as I say, within your project list, this is where it's all of the information, essentially about all of the projects in the system. All of the data from your tasks and projects, though, it incorporates and feeds into the BI Builder module within Bitrix. Okay, so here we have our BI Builder. So all of that information, we can then high level analyze that data. Okay, so from here, completed tasks, we've got some traffic light systems. I can see the involvement of our colleagues on tasks, how many they have overdue. We can look at individual employee performance, so analyzing how much work they have from bar charts, numbers, static graphs. So there's a huge variety of ways we can use the BI Builder to analyze all of that project and task information from the system. So rather than having to go into each low level view of the project, we can use the BI Builders tool to go high level, analyzing all of the data from the system. Okay, and if you have any questions at all about the BI Builder, again, please do add them into the question box and we can answer those. We also have some really detailed BI reporting videos on our YouTube channel. So you can also access those by heading over to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/interface. And now let's take a look at essentially how we can start to automate processes within our tasks and project tool. So what we've looked at so far is how we can create a project, create tasks, how that can be done manually through the system. But there are quite a few ways within the Bitrix system to automate the creation of a project or of tasks within the system. So let's see how we could use these tools to free up time within the Bitrix system. Okay, so the first area I'm going to head over to here is actually the CRM system, because what I want to show you here is how you could actually create an area within the CRM where you can start the initiation of a project when the deal has been won inside the CRM. So that's a very popular workflow that businesses like to set up. So inside here, for example, inside our deals section of the CRM, we have, when we get to our deal one stage, here we're calling this creating a new installation job, but that's the type of project in this environment of BITRIX24. So this is an installation business, so they do installations, that's their type of project. So we're automatically here creating a job record inside the CRM, and that's using smart process automation. So it creates the workload essentially within here. So we can see then when we get to this step, the work that's being carried out on the installations. And if we go into our automation area, you can see as soon as that's been created inside here as a new job record, we've got this task automation tool. So this is automatically, I think the stream has just stopped. 1 second. Okay, there we go. The screen's now back. So if I just show you again there, here we have our automation area within our job SPA. So as soon as the job gets created, we have a task automation record set up. So it's going to automatically here create the task inside the system with a deadline. Okay, so you can start to automate the creation of tasks based on certain triggers using the automation tools here within the CRM system. And there's no limit there to the number of tasks that it could create. So you might have 6 or 7 different types of tasks that are automatically added when the deal is won in the CRM and we create the job record inside the system here. So if we head into one of our project jobs that we're working on, so inside here, we can see all of the information about the job. We can see all the tasks as well that are currently being worked on, and we can see here these are overdue on this project. So you have a centralized area connected inside the CRM where we can store that information. Okay, so if maybe you don't use the CRM, but you also want to automate the creation of a project record, we can use the workflow designer within Bitrix. And again, similar to the SPA process, if you want to use these tools, you'll need a professional cloud version of BITRIX24 to access these features. Okay, so any automated processes such as this, you'll have this on the on-premise, but if you're on the cloud version, you just need to make sure you're on at least a professional cloud version of Bitrix. Okay, so inside here, we can create a workflow to create a new project. Okay, so inside here, let's call this Webinar Perfect Project 2026. I can then add the manager who's going to be responsible for this project. And we've got a role here as the designer who's going to create the content for the webinar. And then we can add the deadline as well for this project. Okay, so we can add a description, and then we can choose here, there's a selection process. So we can choose the type of project that this is going to be. And this is really important because this determines the group and selection of tasks that are added to this project. So if you have maybe different types of projects that you run, you have different types of tasks that are absolutely critical on every different type of project. Based on the selection here, that could then automate the creation. And we could also add any documents as well into here. So let's create that. So you'll see now what this is going to do. It's going to run an approval process. So we want to review that information as the owner of the project. So you can see here, I'm the owner. So that's now been synced across to me. So I can then select the date that I'm confirming as the end date for this project. And good to start the project. Let's add a comment. And let's approve the creation. Okay, so what we'll see now is let's go into our tasks and projects area. And if we go into projects, and let's now search for 2026. And you'll see now that Webinar Perfect Project 2026, that has been created. And it's created the tasks here. So we've got the scoping task to start scoping out this Webinar Perfect Project task page. So you can see that's now been created and assigned out in the system. So you're seeing here the automated creation of the project group with the different features that we need. So here it's got the tasks, the calendar, the drive area, and it's automated the creation of the tasks. So it's just another example of how we can use automations to save you time, to automate the creation of those projects, reducing human interference and human error. Okay, so they may invite the wrong people or add the wrong tasks. That's going to cause a time issue. We can use these automations to streamline that process. And then another area for our automations is, let's go back into our task area. And if we go into our automations, so inside here, what we can see is here the different stages of the Kanban within that project. Okay. And within those different stages, we've got different rules of automations that we can set up within the system here. So for example, when the task is moved to the in progress Kanban stage, we're automatically sending out some notifications to the team that this task is in progress. But we've also have here is, let's say, if the task becomes overdue, so if it's not completed by its deadline and it still isn't completed, we're automatically moving that task to the developer review stage because it needs to be reviewed by a developer to get this back on track. And we're sending out a notification alert to everyone in the project, and also then going to change who is overall responsible for that task. So you can start to see how we can use a mixture of triggers and automations to get tasks back on track and also proactively ensure that information is added at the correct time. Okay, so that is a look there at our automations available within our tasks and projects. Okay, so again, if there's any questions about the automations, please do add them into the question area on YouTube. We are live, so we can answer those for you today. The next area we'll look at, and we did briefly touch upon this earlier on in the session, it's the collabs feature. So it's a fairly new feature within the BITRIX24 system, and it's an area that allows you to invite third parties, whether that's suppliers, could be clients, essentially people who are not part of your internal BITRIX system. We can create a collab area to invite them into the BITRIX tool to collaborate with us. So if I just briefly show you here again, if we go back into our projects, we click on create. One of the options we have now is the collab feature. So I can click on create collab and we can then open up an area where we can then start to communicate. So I can add a title for this. So I'm going to, let's say it's the title of the organization. And then first of all, I can add employees to this collab space. And I can also add guests. So I can add guests via an email address or by a phone number. And that then allows you to invite that external person into this collaboration area. Let's take a look at some collabs in more detail. So you'll see a module on the left-hand side for all of your collabs. And then we can see here as a front-end user on my BITRIX, I can see all the different collabs we have open with external parties. And so I'm then able to communicate with them. Okay, so we can see here, this user is an external user on the BITRIX. And within the collab area, you've got this instant chat system. So you can do chats, video calls or voice calls. But you also have a task management area. So you can manage and share tasks with the person. So let's say if I update this event data review to the client review stage, we can then have the external person look at that task. We can also share documents. So here we've got a document management tool, so we can share documents with them or have the client upload documents. And we have our calendar tool as well, so we can share meeting requests and events. So it really acts as a full collaboration area with your clients. And let's just take a look at this now as the external user. So you can see a key difference here. They can't see any other chats apart from the ones that they have been invited into, so they can communicate in here, but we can set permissions as well. So if I go back into the task area here, you can see that event data review task that's now been updated as we saw by the internal BITRIX person, but as an external user they can't change that stage. It's for them to just see that information, but then we've given them access to view the tasks. They can update information, so you can control what level of permission they have on the collab itself. So that's a really useful tool. And again, there is no limit on the number of collab spaces that you can create. And it does bring me on to some of the additional benefits of a self-hosted system. So if when you're inviting a client into a collab space, if with an on-premise system, you could brand that portal area where they log into. So here's an on-premise login page, so you can have your own corporate branding and information. So it's a lot easier to be able to have a corporate look to the system. You could also do more advanced automation, so you can trigger more automation, say, for example, from mailbox rules. When an email comes in, that could create a task, for example. So it depends on if you want more advanced automation, then you would need a self-hosted version. We also can do more advanced page customizations using the information from the control panel, and also create more custom dashboard reports. So if you are wanting a higher level of customization capability for tasks and projects, then you would want to look at a self-hosted version of BITRIX. Okay, so here are a selection of our up and coming webinars. So we're here every other Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You can register for those webinars at interface.com/webinars. And I thank you very much for your time today. So, in summary, we've seen how we can use the BITRIX24 project management for managing all of our types of projects in a centralized area. We can incorporate task management to manage all the tasks and the workload. But really importantly, you allow different users to be able to view their tasks in different ways. So you get buy-in from every user that uses the system. We can collaborate using the different collab features, instant messaging, video, and we can automate and integrate with the CRM system. And then we've seen the BI Builder tool, so we can build out dashboard reports that analyzes all of the information from our tasks and projects. Okay, so that is the end of today's webinar. I look forward to seeing you on our up and coming webinars in the near future. And the recording of today's session, it will be added onto our YouTube channel. So if you go to youtube.com/interface, you'll be able to access all of our content on there. Okay, so thank you very much for your time today. I look forward to seeing you all again very soon. Bye for now.